The Great Flat Earth Deception, Video 34, Part 2 of 2. As usual with Flat Earth leaders, they start a new subject with a lie. This banner claims NASA and other documents admit the Earth is flat and non-rotating. They admit no such thing. We'll see exactly what they meant. I downloaded all these documents a year or two ago. Don't have links, don't know if they're still up on the NASA and CIA websites. I can zip them up and send you all these documents. My email is in the About section of this channel. It says business inquiries only. That's just what YouTube calls it. NASA does have a legitimate role, which is aircraft dynamics research, probably where most of its funding goes. But of course its main and most publicised role is as a disinformation agency about space travel. The assumptions this research makes: A is the relevant one, we'll come back to that. C, air density is constant. No, it's not constant. D, airframe is a rigid body. No, it has flaps and ailerons that come out and back again, a rudder, landing gear. E, aircraft is constrained in the vertical plane. Obviously that's not reality. G, mass is constant. No, they use military jets normally, and as fuel goes down, mass changes. H, initial flight conditions are for steady state flight. Well, it has to accelerate initially, it can't possibly be steady state. All of these things are increasing unrealism in their model, but it's for the ease of their calculations, and because of their specific modelling, it doesn't matter, and it makes the calculations and formulae much simpler. They hide entropy, but it doesn't make a critical difference. So back to A, well, it's the same thing for A. Assume Earth is flat and non-rotating. It just stops unnecessary complexity in their model. If they were really trying to hide a flat and non-rotating Earth, well, firstly, it would be meaningless to state assumption A in the first place, and secondly, they wouldn't release these documents. One more, creating a Fortran program to simulate flight dynamics for the SR-71 aircraft. The bit I highlighted in blue in the middle. DPS is a digital performance simulation. Equations of motion use 4 assumptions that simplify the program. And that's what it's all about, while maintaining its fidelity for most maneuvers and applications. The program assumptions have to be stated because they move away from reality, but not critically, and are necessary just to be able to write a usable program. So what are the simplifications? Point mass modelling. That means that the entire mass of the plane, the aeroplane, exists at one point. Obviously not reality. Non-turbulent atmosphere, not reality, a simplification. Same with zero side forces. And non-rotating Earth, not reality, a simplification. But not critical for the program, and necessary for vastly simpler modelling. Let's look at the Flat Earth hoax in comparison with other hoaxes to understand it better and see its critical weaknesses in relation to other hoaxes. I think part 1 and this part show its general critical weaknesses, but this is in relation to other hoaxes. I'm going to look at 3 levels of people, starting with professional astronomers in this field, and then amateur astronomers, and then the general airplane using public. 3 levels going down in experience on all of this, but going up dramatically in the numbers of people involved. Firstly, professional astronomers. This is Tenerife, where I live at the moment. Lots of professional telescopes atop the mountain. I've spoken to 2 professional astronomers, one who worked here and the other a British lady on holiday. There are some advanced professions where most of the professionals are not privy to raw data and have to trust their superiors and never test out the fundamental assumptions or theories of their profession, thus making a mega hoax possible. This is for another video, to talk about which particular professions they are. A future video about this realm, this hoax, lie, joke, test realm. And as far as I can see, the system likes innocents to spend their working careers on a subject that's fundamentally nonsense. Well, it is a test for us. This is not possible with professional astronomers. They all get to use their telescopes. A lot of their job is number crunching drudgery, but they do get to see the solar system and known universe firsthand. So for a mega hoax, they'd all have to be in on it. Not feasible. Also, their work is tested and replicated by thousands of amateurs. I asked both astronomers, by the way, that I met years ago now, did we land on the moon? The man laughed and looked to the ground and said, maybe not. The woman winked and smiled. With her it was a social event. We were sitting with a lot of other people at a lunch table. She was restricted. I met the man on his own, but neither wanted to discuss the topic, quite obviously. However, I was delighted at their honesty. Are they part of the club? I think definitely not. A shill would try to persuade me about how NASA publishes the times, for example, and locations of the International Space Station, and he'd tell me we can see it for ourselves, but actually nobody can. And if either one came out with something like this, such shill lies, I certainly wouldn't have wanted to speak any more with them. All professional astronomers work for the government, directly or indirectly, observatories, universities, for example, and I guess they have to be discreet. If there was the supposed stuff left on the moon, like flags and lunar rovers, they'd be able to see them with crystal clarity, and both the astronomers I talked to would say, well, yes, they must have gone because we see the junk they left behind. But the main point of this is that everything they talked about freely, i.e. non-controversial, was heliocentrism, i.e. reality. Now, amateur astronomers, this is me and my 85 pounds in money, not weight, Chinese telescope that I bought about 15 years ago. Very simple, no motors, no electronics, no computer. I used it a lot 15 years ago, not really since then, except it does come out if I have guests staying and they want to see Saturn, if it's in the sky, or the moon, or Mars, or Jupiter. I forgot that I had proved to myself 15 years ago that the Earth is a rotating globe in a heliocentric solar system. I wasn't trying to prove it. I wasn't even aware of flat Earth as a modern concept. For example, I'm holding an equatorial mount there. An equatorial mount can only possibly work on a rotating globe, not a plane, and mine worked perfectly. How could I ever, even if briefly, entertain flat Earth? If you were to get your first telescope, and I recommend it, get a simple, cheap reflector telescope like this. If you start off with a telescope with electric motors and a computer, you'll never learn how to manually find things in the Milky Way and near the universe, and you won't really have a sense of how an equatorial mount works unless you've experienced a hand-turned mechanical mount like this. This is how the moon looks, how I saw it, how you would see it, and you're free to do so. A spherical rock reflecting sunlight. Just buy a cheap telescope and see for yourselves. This is an interesting comment under Eric Dubé's latest video from Eric the Wanker in the middle. He says, I'm as much as a flatty as they come, and I've done moon photography. It's clearly a sphere that is reflecting light. The uniform hard shadows of the crater edges says it all. We can't fathom all the details of how the sun and moon work, but the uniform hard cast shadows cannot be ignored. It's impossible to look at a high-res pic of the moon and not declare absolutely that it is a sphere. Well, I couldn't have put it better myself. I think you should say, not look at a high-res pic, but look at the moon, with your own eyes, with a telescope. Eric Dubé, however, insists that the moon is a disk. Eric the Watcher, is losing the faith and is soon to be a flatty no more. They say the moon gives off its own light, which is cold. They put a thermometer outside facing the moon, take the temperature, then they shield the moon from it with a piece of cardboard or something. The temperature goes up, and they say they're shielding the cold moonlight from the thermometer. No, they are simply reflecting back radiative heat. Stellarium, the heliocentric system modelled in a computer program. You can use it to find out what's in the sky at any time and where it is in the sky, now or in the future. It actually has more functionality than the paid programs because it's open source. Programmers all over the world are constantly improving it, adding functionality. So anybody can inspect the software and assess it for themselves. It can't possibly be fake. For most things, though, I use a paid program. This one was cheap, and they often have a nice interface and easier to use, and I'm just used to this one. I've cleared this small section of sky of everything but planets. Let's zoom in on Saturn and its moons. So, in the previous screenshot, I know where to look for Saturn in the sky, and now I know what I should be looking for. Nice views of the rings, not side on. Let's say we're all going up a mountain with our telescopes 6 months from now, and so I've pushed the date forward 6 months. In this view we can see the whole sky. This is earlier in the day than the other shots. The sky is lighter, and we can see the sun has not yet set. So normally we'd wait a bit until it has set before using our telescopes. But let's zoom in on Saturn again. This model of the heliocentric system is predictive for everything, down to the second or to the minute, because it's a model of reality. It has to be reality because everything works on this exactly as we see it in the sky with our own eyes. No flat earth model can predict anything, never has, never will, because the flat earth is a joke. We've looked at pro and amateur astronomers and models of the known universe. Now let's look at the long-distance travelling public and airline routes. But first, briefly, shipping routes. Programs like this are used by professional shippers. I've used it here in its free capacity. If you want more functionality, you have to pay. Ships, like aircraft, go every which way and never see any edge to the world. Their planning, this program, is based on the globe and other programs like it. You can input any cities into this. I typed Anchorage to Vladivostok, Anchorage in Alaska to Vladivostok in Russia. And in the free version it gives you the distance and time and some other things. Commercial companies who transport people and goods throughout the world have to have accurate information. They can't entertain nonsense about a plane and an ice wall. This is the One World Network, the smallest of all the big 3 airline alliances. And you can see there exist all the southern hemisphere flights denied by the flat earthers. You can take such a flight yourself. This is all the world airline routes in 2009. There are direct flights from South America to Australasia and Africa, and vice versa. Less flights in the southern hemisphere because it's much less populated than the northern. The flat earth leaders say these flights don't exist, or they say you can never get such a flight even if you see it advertised, because the airlines will say they're always fully booked. But that's just another blatant lie, simply. You can take such a flight yourself, and you owe it to yourself if you're a die-hard flatty. And if you do take such a flight, you could make a holiday out of it. Take this map with you, or a little globe, and you will see the countries and oceans you pass over match, as do the distances and times. This is Gleason's, the main flat Earth map we saw a lot of in part 1. Take a printout of this with you as well, and you will see for yourself that this one is all wrong. The countries and oceans you pass over are different from this map. So this is testing it out for yourself, as I always say, and in doing so proving the globe. Routes look curved because no two-dimensional map can exactly display a globe. Go to Joss Leys' channel, Joss space Leys, and you'll see the video reformation of the map, this map to the globe, using modelling software. Not so many videos, you'll find it easily, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful modelling thing to see, and he's an expert at it. June solstice, when the sun is directly over the Tropic of Cancer. Note as well that the sun is only one direction from the Earth, to the left in this image. That sounds obvious, but the reason I mention it will become apparent. The terminator is the name for the imaginary line that divides the hemisphere in light from the hemisphere in dark. It always corresponds to the sunlight on a globe. Exactly. This is Gleason's with its 2 yellow solstice maps, and I proved in part 1 that the sun is not a spotlight, as it would have to be for a flat Earth model. So another reason why Gleason's is nonsense. This picture is from Joss Leys again. This is the Gleason's map of the June solstice with sun headings. Heading means direction or bearing. If you take the headings of the sun for all the different countries in sunlight, they all point in different directions on any flat Earth map. But the sun is only one direction from Earth. And he has a video of the solstice, the sun headings from Gleason's, reforming to reality, i.e. reforming to the globe. And what do you know? If you use the right model, they are all pointing in one direction. Let's pretend that the sun was a spotlight on a plane, just for a moment, and it's midnight. Well, you should still be able to see a small segment of the sun, maybe crescent-shaped, and regardless, you should see its light coming down to the Earth below, and you should see the part of the world that is lit up, let's say on a hill or tall building with your telescope, to overcome local obstacles. After all, we're all on the same plane, they tell us. Well, you can't see any of that. We can't possibly be on a plane. And by the way, don't ever look at the sun with a telescope without a sun filter, or you'll go instantly blind in that eye. The flat Earth Tropic of Capricorn is 2 or 3 times the length of the Tropic of Cancer. That means that the December solstice day, around December 21, is 3 times as long as the June solstice day, say June 21, but it's not. It's 24 hours long, of course, exactly like June 21. In the real world, the Tropic of Capricorn is exactly the same length as the Tropic of Cancer. One day in March and one day in September, the sun crosses the equator as in this picture, and day and night everywhere on Earth are of approximately equal length. These 2 days are called the equinoxes, and in a way you could say they are the opposites of the solstices. From one of the equinoxes, the sun maps a northerly arc for 6 months, then equinox again, and then a southerly arc for 6 months. These things can only happen on a spinning globe, impossible on a flat disk, along with the other 100 things I've mentioned in these 2 videos. Each one of these things we can see, and each one is proof of the globe and disproof of the plane. In the comments under part 1, I got a few show us the curvature comments. I commented and replied. I pointed out 4 places in part 1 where I had proved the curvature. Read the comments if you're interested. But you know the saying, you can take a horse to water, but can't make it drink. Here's another quick, simple one. Lie down on the beach at sunset and watch the sun disappear. Then stand up and you'll see it again, and you can watch it disappear again from a standing position. The sun comes back not because of perspective or the eye's limit of resolution. It's because we live on a spinning globe. Here is an interesting psychological con job that is applied in false dichotomies. This one being the false dichotomy of NASA versus flat Earth, both of which are lies in our hoax, lie, joke and test realm. The NASA shills disprove flat Earth, and they do so easily and decisively, thus simultaneously proving their professional opponents to be liars. This makes their position in the eyes of their sheep extremely powerful, and diminishes the need for their sheep to look closely at NASA claims and photographs. The flat Earth shills disprove NASA claims of rocketry and artificial satellites, and they do so easily and decisively, thus simultaneously proving their professional opponents to be liars. This makes their position in the eyes of their sheep extremely powerful, and diminishes the need for their sheep to look closely at flat Earth theory. So as we see in YouTube land all the time in comments and so on, this leads to aggressively loyal followers for both sides, but with neither side having the full truth, and both sides being conned and having ridiculous lies. This little section is why this video is in my Why God Doesn't Believe in the Bible playlist. So what of God or creationism, whatever we want to call it? Is it really such an existentialist nightmare to realize that our solar system, let alone our planet, let alone ourselves, is a speck of dust in the universe? I don't see why it should be. We're obviously still something special, and something created us. Would God make everything, the sun and the planets, small and local, as in the Bible, so that we supposedly feel comfortable? Well, this hoax-lie realm isn't comfortable, is it? Not at the beginning of our journey, anyway. But it is fascinating. Would God take 6 days to make a piddling little universe and then be so tired he needed to rest on the 7th day, as in the Bible? Of course not. That sounds extremely ungodlike. Does a static disk that needs a wall to stop the oceans pouring away sound godlike to you? Sounds ludicrously ungodlike to me. Does it sound godlike to you to need a kind of glass dome to protect us? That sounds childish to me. What is godlike is an infinite universe of spinning balls, with gravity to keep it all together, whatever gravity is. And in both the writings of Newton and Einstein are admissions that while gravity has to exist, its nature is unknown. Also godlike to make our sun and moon the exact same apparent size in the sky and leave it to us to discover that they are in fact very different actual sizes. Ridicule spinning balls is a flat earth meme, and it's very cleverly deceptive. Its deception, as in many deceptions, is in hijacking an existing emotion. Because if we think about it logically, the sphere is actually the most beautiful three-dimensional shape for us, and spinning is the most elegant motion. Extremely godlike, if you ask me. So what of the Bible? Well, things aren't looking too good for it. This page and the 4 following pages, you can pause if you want to read them. They are hundreds of flat earth biblical references. They are from a post I saw that believed it was using the Bible to prove flat earth. But you can't use a book of stories that we don't really know anything about to prove anything. I'm not insulting God, whatever that is, because we have no evidence that God is anything to do with the Bible. But we do have plenty of logical reasoning that he's nothing to do with the Bible. And I'm sure that he's above taking insult. And I'm also sure that he's above any of the biblical descriptions of him. He has to be. We can, however, use logical, empirical science to disprove a book of stories, if those stories deny scientific proofs. The Bible simply got it wrong. And that's maybe a clue for us to look for God elsewhere. Or rather, not really look, but just think. Think of him differently than described in the Bible fantasies. The next video coming up explains frames of reference and relative motion simply and graphically, and is essential to understand before understanding the universe. It's an academic demonstration from 1960, a time when there were more realistic documentaries and when substance trumped style. The video after that, Flat Earther inadvertently proves spinning ball. Both this video and the one before it I just showed you should be already uploaded as you're watching this. Not yet ready, a critique of a speech by a Flat Earth former pilot, and in this I mention new proofs that I haven't mentioned in part 1 and part 2. NASA admits its so-called photographs of Earth are CGI, but remember, NASA are an irrelevance. Their fake photos don't change the fact that the Earth is a beautiful big blue spinning ball. Don't believe anything just because it's supposedly against the mainstream. If you're still a flat earther, pick one of the many topics I covered on this video or part 1. Pick the one that interests you the most and become an expert on it, because all roads lead to the spinning ball. It's only at the beginning of these roads, when knowledge is weak and the flat earth psyop is able to breathe. Proofs of globe heliocentrism I didn't cover include star trails, behaviour of our moon, of other moons, of other planets. They keep saying do your own research, but they don't really mean it, and they hope you don't. And they continue uploading their deceptive videos to keep you transfixed and close to them. So confound them and actually do your own research, but away from the sheep herders. Once you understand the flat earth joke, you can laugh at it. It's funny. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.